The 2025 AFCON is soon upon us, so it's only right that I give you my predictions on what's going to happen at this tournament. Will Morocco finally win the AFCON again when there's so much pressure on them? Will Ivory Coast go back to back? Will Mo Salah finally win the inevitable AFCON trophy that he's been wanting? Well, find out in this video, because we all know I'm about to get these predictions 100% correct. And trust me, there's going to be upsets in this one. So let's just get straight to it. Starting off in Group A, we've got the host nation of Morocco in a group with Mali, Zambia, and Comoros. And let's begin by talking about Morocco first. The undeniable favorites to go on and win the entire tournament as the previous 2022 World Cup semi-finalists and the host of this AFCON. There was so much pressure on this Moroccan side to deliver the country their second AFCON trophy ever. I genuinely would not be surprised if the players shat their lungs out every night just thinking about the mission that they've got on their hands. But the pressure is understandable. This is Morocco's best chance of winning an AFCON in a very long time, as the record in the previous AFCONs had been horrendous. It's about time that the best team in Africa right now performs in their regional tournament. Not only that, this also might be the best Moroccan side potentially ever, even better than the side that became the first African country to make a World Cup semi-final. They don't even utilize the likes of Hakimi or Sofiane Boufal anymore, who were key pieces back at the 2022 World Cup. But they got other talents in the ranks now, like Chemsi Talbi, Ismail Sabari, Ayub El Kabi, Amir Richardson, Bilal Kanous, Elias Ben-Seeger, Hamza Igamane, who's on the provisional list right now due to injury, but he might still make the AFCON squad, which he should because he's still the most technical 9 Morocco's got. And they got all these players on top of already existing talent, like Yassine Bono, the goalkeeper, Youssef En-Nesyri, the striker who scored against Portugal at the last World Cup, and of course, Morocco's new captain and the best right back in the world, Achraf Hakimi, who will be returning from a serious injury right before the AFCON, so let's see how he performs. Overall, with a squad like this, it's no surprise that there's a lot of pressure on Morocco. But to be fair in this group, I think Morocco's got this one in the bag. However, let's give everybody in this group a fair shot and talk about Mali next. Now, Mali's a side that is destined to be a dark horse at every single AFCON, but they always find a way to fuck it up. At the last AFCON too, they made it to the quarterfinals and it seemed destined that they were going to knock out the host Ivory Coast in that round. But then in the very last minute, Simone Nigra equalized the match, and the Akite of Ivory Coast scored a last minute winner in extra time to knock out Mali despite going down to 10 men. Unbelievable fumble by Mali, man. But it's a new tournament, and it seems like a doable group for these somewhat talented players. I mean, they've got the likes of Fenerbahce's Nene Dorgeles, El Bilal Toure, Amadou Hidara, Kamuri Doumbia, and of course, how can I forget about Bissouma, who I low-key thought was going to get snubbed from the AFCON roster after all his recent balloon antics. But he's been called back up, so let's see if he can take the side far at the AFCON. Mali didn't qualify for the World Cup, so the AFCON is all they got to show the continent that they can still be taken seriously. Now it's time to talk about Zambia. And man, this past year, Zambia had just been a depressing side. Sure, they've got some talented players, like of course Patson Daka, everybody knows him, maybe even Lambek Banda, who's in the Serie A, Miguel Shaiwa, who plays in Germany, etc. But this roster is not that good, man. Plus, in the year of 2025, they failed to even do half decent in the World Cup qualifying group, where of course we all knew Morocco was going to top it, but at least you could try to get second place. Come on now. And also in the year of 2025, they got spanked by Russia 5-0, lost to Comoros 1-0 in the Kosafa Cup, a team in their group at the AFCON by the way, lost to Kenya, lost to Niger, etc. It's honestly just not looking too good for Zambia. I wouldn't be surprised if they did not do well at the AFCON, no cap. But now let's talk about Comoros, who I just briefly mentioned. They were at their second AFCON, and the last time out, they did pretty well, making the knockout stages at their first ever AFCON, so props to them. Now they're at their second. And yeah, they might have gotten a little unlucky with their group, since they're with the favorites Morocco and a Mali side who's in their World Cup qualifying group, beating Comoros both times they faced each other by 3-goal margins, but I really would not rule out this side completely. They're alright. However, talking about my predictions for this group, nothing too crazy for this one. I'm going to put Zambia in last, Comoros in third, Mali in second, and of course I got Morocco finishing on top of the group with little to no difficulty. No shockers here. Now though, I think it's time we move on to Group B, where we're finally going to up the spiciness levels, because the first group was mild as hell. And in this group, we've got the historic African powerhouses Egypt, South Africa, Angola, and Zimbabwe. Yeah, this group is heat. Let's speak about my dogs Egypt first though, who haven't won an AFCON since 2010, where they won the continent high of 7 AFCON trophies. It's been 16 years since then and nothing's happened. They've been in a drought for real. I need my boy Mo Salah to get an AFCON trophy. All the other African greats, except like George Weah because he's from Liberia, have an AFCON. It's just him who doesn't. And he's had opportunities. He's been in 2 AFCON finals where Abubakar broke Egyptian hearts in 2017, scoring a last minute winner. And then the 2021 AFCON, Senegal won on penalties to break Egyptian hearts once again. Can this finally be the time where Egypt shows out? Maybe. I mean, they do have a better squad now compared to the last AFCON. With right now, Omar Marmoush is balling out with Manchester City, Mustafa Mohamed is an alright striker in France, and then Imam Mouchour is back in the Egyptian squad and he's a baller. They did great in World Cup qualifying too, winning most of their games with ease, but they played a lot of teams that didn't have the best offenses. So Egypt's shaky defense wasn't really tested, unlike how it's going to be at the AFCON. Like I said in previous videos, Egypt is like that horse meat. Incredible offense, but once you get into the midfield and then the defense, it's pretty mid. I hope Egypt does well though. I need to see that Salah masterclass. I can see Salah turning around his poor Liverpool form and shushing the critics like Jamie Carragher if he balls out with with Egypt and wins the AFCON. That script would be fire. But now let's move on to South Africa, who are now being highly rated across many football fans across the globe. They're low-key going pretty mainstream. I mean, after all, they did top their World Cup qualifying group consisting of Nigeria and Benin, despite facing a 3-point deduction for playing maqwell in one of these qualifying games where he was supposed to be suspended. And they also got 3rd place at the last AFCON too. So I feel like expectations on South Africa right now are pretty high. And it makes sense, like I said. They've got some great players. They've got the goalkeeper Ronwen Williams, who's a beast at the last AFCON. Maqwell, of course, as I mentioned briefly before. Lyle Foster is there. Mofo King is also there. And Bokazi, who just made the move to Chicago Fire and is quickly becoming one of the best center backs in Africa, is also there, etc. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of good talent on South Africa's squad right now. And their manager Hugo Broos is having a masterclass with the side. However, that one quote about Mbokazi moving to the Chicago Fire has not been taken too well, with him saying, "I can assure you, he's a black guy, but he will get out of my room as a white guy."
What the does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
You're welcome.
Not for real though, what the hell does that even mean, bro? What is bro waffling about? Anyways, let's now talk about Angola, who really did not have a good 2025. I mean, they completely bombed the World Cup qualifying group, finishing 4th place after having a previously good AFCON. And speaking about the last AFCON, they fired their manager from back then and now hired the new guy, Patrice Boimel. So let's see how the old Ivory Coast manager performs with Angola this time. They're still relying on some older players from last time out too, like Mabululu and Freddy for example, which is fine. But this side isn't that special if we're just being completely honest. And then there's Zimbabwe, who literally just hired a new head coach, Mario Maranisa, in like November or something. So Zimbabwe is kind of a random side. They got some good players like Marvelous Nakamba, Munashe Garananga, Tawanda Chirwa, but to be honest, their midfield and defense is too dead for me to say that they'll do anything impressive at this tournament. So for me, I'm gonna have Zimbabwe finishing in last place and Angola in 3rd, although for me between these two sides is a toss-up. And then in 2nd place, I feel like a lot of people got these guys finishing 1st, but I'm still gonna put South Africa 2nd. I think their unbeaten streak will be beaten this time around by the team who's gonna top this group in Egypt. I believe in the Egyptians, man. Mo Salah, you know I got your back, bro chacho. Alright, now I think it's time we talk about Group C, where we got Nigeria, Tunisia, Uganda, and Tanzania in this group. And yeah, this group right here is going to be a good one. But for this group, let's switch it up and not talk about the favorites immediately, and instead start off with Tanzania. And Tanzania, who are the next host of the AFCON 2027, will they do well at this AFCON? Well, that pretty much sums up what I think about Tanzania right now. These guys have never won an AFCON game, and I'm not sure that's going to change anytime soon. So let's talk about Uganda, another co-host of the next AFCON, and a side I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on right now, no cap. The Ugandans are on the come up right now for real. They don't really have any notable players on their team, but if you watch their World Cup qualifying campaign, they're a team that absolutely loves to attack, and this helped them get 2nd place in the qualifying group, just under Algeria. In fact, in the match away to Algeria, which happened recently, Uganda got an early goal, and it seemed like they would get a 1-0 win away from home in Algeria, until they gave up 2 penalties and lost the game 2-1. But Uganda are very good at counter-attacking, and they're going to be a team that's going to be fun to watch at the AFCON for sure. Now let's talk about Tunisia next. They qualified to the World Cup with ease, winning almost every single game and not even losing or conceding a single goal in the African World Cup qualifiers. But let's just keep it real. Although this defensive style works in Africa, it's just boring as hell to watch as a neutral viewer. I don't remember the last time I've been entertained by watching Tunisia play football, man. To be fair, they did pretty well in their friendly against Brazil, almost beating them if it weren't for that Esteban penalty. But yeah, Tunisia are pretty boring. They've got some more technical pieces now though compared to the years prior, because despite losing Khadri, who retired from football altogether recently, they got Hannibal Mejbri, who seems to be a piece Tunisia can rely on for a very long time. Then there's Ismail Garvi, Sebastian Donetki, etc. Tunisia is alright. I personally though, I'm not the biggest fan of them, and I don't really rate them as highly as some other people do. But now it's time to talk about Nigeria, who barely missed out on qualifying to the World Cup, with them playing like pussies in the match against DR Congo in the World Cup qualifying final to make it to the Interconfederation playoffs. And after losing Victor Osimhen due to injury in the middle of that game, they had a terrible penalty shootout and lost to DR Congo, ensuring Nigeria won't be playing in back-to-back World Cups. If Victor Osimhen didn't exist to carry this sorry side, Nigeria would be irrelevant. I'm not even gonna hold you. Irrelevant! Nigeria have been so mad that Trusty Kong, their captain, decided enough was enough and retired from the national team. That's crazy. Now, of course, Nigeria has some other good pieces, like Ademola Lookman, Samuel Chukwueze, Wilfred Ndidi, Alex Iwobi, Calvin Bassey, etc. But I don't know how to completely feel about them still. The thing is, Nigeria does need to win this AFCON, man. This is all they got since they won't be at the World Cup. It's either the AFCON or a failure for Nigeria in my books. Anyways, for my predictions for this group, Tanzania is definitely in last place. Then in 3rd place, I'm gonna have to go for Tunisia. I know it's a bit of a surprise, but here on the Nabhuto channel, we like predicting the unlikely scenarios. And Tunisia failed in the group stages of the last AFCON too, by the way, so it's not that unlikely that the same can happen again. Then in 2nd, I'm gonna put Uganda. I think they can pull off the upset in this group. And even though I was shitting on Nigeria, I think they'll lock in to at least top this group. You heard it here first. But now, before we move on to Group D, I would like to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabhuto. If you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall just to get to know me more. And also, make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description. And also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon. So if you want to, follow me on my socials, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Now back to Group D. We got Senegal, DR Congo, Benin, and Botswana. And starting off with Botswana, shout out to them because they qualified to their second ever AFCON. Their first one in 14 years, the last time being in 2010. And they did that by finishing second place in their AFCON qualifying group, finishing above Mauritania and Cape Verde. The team would just qualify to their first ever World Cup, which is just absolutely insane. But Botswana? Yeah, there's nothing too much about them. I'd be surprised if they even got a point, respectfully. Now let's move on to Benin next, where they were so close to surprisingly qualifying to their first ever World Cup. Thanks to that South African point deduction, Benin were on top of the group heading into the last window of qualifying, but they ended up fumbling to Nigeria basically in the last match to not qualify for the World Cup. But Benin overall are an okay side. They're not the worst, but they're definitely not the best. They're better defensively than they are offensively from what I've seen, but keep an eye out on their striker, Steve Mooney, who's currently with Augsburg. Maybe he could be the difference maker for this side. Now let's move on to DR Congo, who is a side that's had a very good past couple of years. Not only did they make the semifinals of the last AFCON, but now they're very close to qualifying for their first ever World Cup under the DR Congo name, with them making the Interconfederation playoffs, only having to beat either Jamaica or New Caledonia to qualify for the World Cup. Not only that, they've got some great players, like Chancellor Mbemba, Cedric Bakambu, recently recruited Erwan Bissaka, and Yohan Wissa, who won't be at this AFCON due to injury, but still, DR Congo are building something pretty good with their program right now. I like DR Congo, and I think they can make another underdog run at the AFCON, and I hope they qualify for the World Cup, even though I know that has nothing to do with this video right now. But now let's talk about Senegal, and I think they've been getting a little overlooked for some time now. Ever since flopping at the last AFCON, the expectations for Senegal have been low from the overall football fan base. But Senegal are a good side with a lot of good players. Of course, the old guard is still there with Koulibaly, Edouard Mendy, Sadio Mane of course, but they've also got some other great players, like Ismail Sarr, who I hope is at the AFCON, Iliman Ndiaye, Idrissa Gueye, Nicholas Jackson, Papi Matar, Ibrahim Mbaye, Lamine Camara, Assane Diao, and many more. Additionally, Senegal have already beaten their toughest opponent in this group, DR Congo, where in the crucial qualifier they were down 2-0, but came back and ended up winning the match 3-2 to make sure Senegal qualified automatically to the World Cup. This generation for Senegal is looking nice, man. They just seem like they can't really be beaten, and they could really win the AFCON again this year. Now, Aliou Cisse isn't the head coach anymore, but the new guy, Papa Thiaw, seems like he's the real deal for the Senegalese. So I'm excited to see what happens in this group. But for me, I definitely got Botswana in last place, Benin is in third place, but they'll probably qualify as one of the best third place teams, and then there's DR Congo in second, and I got Senegal in first. No crazy upsets in this one. I see the vision though for Senegal, no lie. And now I think it's time we move on to Group B, where we got Algeria, Burkina Faso, Equatorial Guinea, and Sudan. And we're going to begin this group by talking about Sudan first. They qualified above Ghana in the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, by the way, finishing second place in that group. And then in World Cup qualifiers, they were looking good initially, and even bossed Senegal in the game at home, despite not scoring a goal since they had 0 finishing. They had Darweezy up top or some shit. But this year in 2025, it seems like Sudan have fallen off completely. They're not playing anywhere near as good, losing to teams like Iraq, which is a decent side in the Arab Cup, and even losing to Bahrain out of all teams too, 3-1. So yeah, things are not looking too good for Sudan. While for Equatorial Guinea, I mean, things were looking pretty good for them for the longest time. At the past couple of AFCONs, they pulled out upsets out of the bag, even absolutely destroying the later champions Ivory Coast in the last match of the group stages 4-0 or something like that. But ever since the whole drama surrounding Emilio Nsoue's eligibility surfaced, and him getting banned from the national team for a while, which completely cost Equatorial Guinea's qualification for the World Cup, etc., things have not been looking too good for this national team. I think Nsoue is supposed to be back, but I'm not sure whether that's 100% confirmed yet. But without him, Equatorial Guinea are definitely not going to do good at this AFCON. Let's just be serious. Moving on to Burkina Faso now. This team is electrifying offensively, man. They showed that in the World Cup qualifiers when they got absolutely hoed with the African Federation changing the rules on how the second place teams qualify for the World Cup, with Eritrea dropping out early, causing Nigeria to finish above Burkina Faso as one of the best second place teams. But still, Burkina Faso are showing levels, and they did show levels in the World Cup qualifying too. Egypt were just simply better than them in the qualifying group, but don't be mistaken, Burkina Faso got great talents that can help them stay solid defensively, like Tabsoba of course, and even up front too, like Bertrand Traore, who's a baller for Burkina Faso usually, Lassina Traore, Dango Outara, etc. Burkina Faso could be the dark horses at this AFCON, no troll. But now I think it's time we talk about Algeria, who have been looking good under the new manager Pekovic, who loves pulling off shots at international tournaments like he did with Switzerland, like knocking out France at the 2021 Euros. But now with Algeria, who he helped cruise Algeria to the 2026 World Cup, they're looking good. And I mean, Algeria got some absolute studs on their team, like Riyad Mahrez, who's still kicking about, Mohamed Amoura, who finished as the top goal scorer of the African World Cup qualifiers with 10 goals, the talented Haj Moussa, Benzemaini, Said Ben Rama, Houssam Aouar, Reinhard Nouri, Amine Gouiri, and even got Zidane's son, Lucas Zidane, and goal if necessary. The only negative thing I would say about Algeria though is I think they're low-key cursed. In the last couple of AFCONs after winning the one in 2019 I believe, they've gotten grouped, which is just absolutely shocking. Even falling below Equatorial Guinea too, by the way, in the AFCON before the last one. They've gotten this jinx attached to them that they need to shake off. But can Pekovic be the man to to help change things around for the Algerians? I mean, I think so. His track record proves so. But AFCON is not the Euros, man. AFCON is way more random and low-key a little more entertaining at times too, if I'm just keeping it 100. Speaking about my predictions for this group though, I'm gonna have to say Sudan is finishing last, Equatorial Guinea is gonna finish in third, whether Nsue is there or not, Burkina Faso I'm gonna say is gonna finish second place, and I believe in Algeria to the point where I got them finishing first place in this group to ensure that they don't get grouped this time. Don't let me down, Algeria. And now I think it's time we talk about Group F, where we got an extremely exciting group. Probably one of my top 2 favorite groups at the AFCON this time around, where we have Ivory Coast, the former champions, Cameroon, Gabon, and Mozambique. Wow, this group is absolute cinema. Let's talk about Mozambique first though, who honestly are not a bad national team nowadays, despite never winning a game at the AFCON, because they've improved a lot lately with them finishing third place in a World Cup qualifying group with a grand total of 18 points, tied on points with Uganda. Just ignore that poor goal difference though, please. And they got a couple of notable players, like of course the Sunderland fullback Reynaldo, Geni Gatamo, maybe if y'all recognize him, and a couple more guys in there for show. But this group, man, yeah, it's gonna be difficult to get anything out of this one, I can't lie. Now moving on to Gabon, man, they were so close to making their debut at the World Cup. So close. If it weren't for an Ivory Coast side that's so solid defensively and didn't concede a single goal throughout all the qualifying, Gabon might have generally made it to the World Cup. Or if they didn't capitulate in extra time against Nigeria in the battle of second places, that too. I would have loved to see a bombing at the World Cup, but that's not gonna happen. However, Gabon has a great squad. Do not get it twisted. Like of course Aubameyang's there, but then there's a star LAFC man, Dennis Bouanga, who became best friends with Heung-min Son by the way, fun fact. Anthony Oyono's there, Mario Lemina is of course there, etc. These guys are a good side, and could be dark horses at this AFCON. The thing is, defensively, oof, they gotta be a little better defensively if they want to pull off anything at this AFCON. Come on now. And now let's go over to Ivory Coast next, because we got a lot to talk about for Cameroon, so let's just save them for last. Anyways, for Ivory Coast, I mean, I feel like we all know what happened at the last AFCON at this point. They finished third place in their group, getting humiliated by Equatorial Guinea, to then firing the coach, and then ended up winning the entire tournament at home by the end of it. Incredible. Can they go back to back though? Shit, only time will tell. Now defensively, Ivory Coast are amazing, and we can see this in World Cup qualifying, with them finishing on top of their difficult group consisting of good sides like Gabon and Gambia, and they managed to do this being undefeated while scoring 25 goals in 10 games, even though most of those goals came against Seychelles, and they conceded 0 goals throughout the entire qualifying. They also have very good offensive players, like Evan Gassand, Yan Diomande, Frank Kessie, Sebastian Aller, Amad Diallo, Seko Fofana, Simona Dingra, who didn't get called up, which is kind of shocking since he was the young player of the tournament at the last one, and Nicolas Pepe of course, who by the way might marry Tiana Trump. That's actually wild. But guess what? Nicolas Pepe did not get called up to the AFCON as well, which is crazy because he's been having a pretty good season for Villarreal this year. Is it because he was dissing Ronaldo? I guess we'll never know actually. His celebration though this season has gone viral on social media, and we're not going to be able to see that at the AFCON this year. That's actually kind of wild. And you want to know why that is? And who replaced him? Well, that's because the coach Emer Sefé has brought back Wilfried Zaha into the national team, who hasn't scored for Ivory Coast since 2019. I don't really know what Emer Sefé is thinking here. Zaha over Pepe in the big 2025 is certainly an interesting choice. Regardless though, with offensively capable players, Ivory Coast have got to start generating more chances than they already do. And with a good defensive back line consisting of the likes of Stingo, Indika, etc., Ivory Coast are definitely one of the favorites to go back to back. But now I think it's finally time to talk about Cameroon. And man, where do I even start with these guys, man? Because that World Cup qualifying failure at this point is the least of their problems right now. So basically, to summarize this really quickly, the Cameroon squad sheet for the AFCON was released, and the likes of Vincent Aboubakar and Andre Onana weren't there, even though 4 goalkeepers were called up. And apparently, Samuel Eto'o called the shots, not the coach. And the streets were saying that he didn't want Aboubakar to break his all-time goal-scoring record for Cameroon, which is why he wasn't called up to the AFCON. But the coach, Marc Brice, wanted both of these guys called up, and this caused some beef between him and Samuel Eto'o. And Eto'o decided to sack Brice, the coach. But the coach refused to leave, so Cameroon has 2 separate squad sheets for the AFCON right now, with one of those squads having Arnaud Melkamdem, a free agent who has been playing in Brazil's regional league, the 6th tier to be precise. And he's been called up to play at the AFCON for Cameroon. Yo, Cameroon, are you sure you guys don't have anyone better? Oh man, Cameroon are a mess. Yeah, they still have other talented players on their team, like Mbeumo of course, Carlos Baleba, etc. But right now, Cameroon is just such a mess from the squad to the entire federation. So now for my prediction, I'm gonna go for a shock and have Cameroon last. I think there's gonna be a giant that gets grouped like it always happens at the AFCON, and I think it'll be Cameroon this time around. Then third place, I got Mozambique, who will win their first AFCON game, as they're gonna be Cameroon, trust. Then a second, I got another shock. I'm gonna go for the former champions Ivory Coast, which means I got Gabon finishing in first. I think Gabon is gonna get revenge on Ivory Coast for what happened in the World Cup qualifiers and top the group somehow after beating Ivory Coast 1-0. You heard it here first. And now for the knockout stages, yeah, I ain't doing all that.
Boring.
Listen. Knowing who the third place teams are going to play is almost impossible to find out. And from my research, I haven't found a single solid AFCON 2025 predictor game online. So I guess let me just skip to who I think is going to win the AFCON this year. And you can clip this and share this all over social media because I'm staying on business for this one. Egypt is going to win the 2025 AFCON and Mo Salah will have the trophy that's been avoiding him for the longest time. It's not going to be Senegal. It's not going to be Morocco. But Egypt will find a way to win it. I don't care about the facts, the logic, etc. All that stuff is boring. I like stories, man. I love stories. And this right here, yeah, this would be an incredible story. So let's go, Egypt. Let's go. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more AFCON content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and join the Discord community. All the links are on my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to know my super early predictions for the 2026 World Cup, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.